This is the video tutorial for Module 3.2 test review, and this is equations from points, or specifically, this is really the point slope formula. Now, there is actually a warm-up activity that goes with this. So just to remind of a few basic points here. What is the equation of a line with slope 2 and y-intercept 3? So remember, if we start an equation with y equals, then this is slope-intercept form. So the slope is the number with the x, and the number without the x is the y-intercept. So it would just be that one for the first question. And then similar for the other ones, -5 is the slope, so I would want -5x, and y-intercept is -2. Slope of 1, and strictly I'll be looking for 1x and -2. Notice when it's 1x, we just put actually x for this question. Slope of 0, this could be 0x plus 3, and 0x is just nothing, so really it's just 3. And remember from Hoy as well, Hoy, H-O-Y, the O is really a 0, so this is a slope of 0. So it's just y equals a number, which would be y equals 3. And undefined slopes, I know that undefined slope like this is my vertical line. So I know this is Vux, V-U-X, and therefore it's x equals -2. And there was just a reminder that if some of the questions, if you're not sure, you can actually try graphing them to see. So some people I know for y, for the slope of 0 and an intercept of 3, put y equals 3x. Now, if you graph y equals 3x, you actually get a positive slope, which is not a slope of 0 at all. So you could always check answers that way too. So when we're doing point slope formula, the reason it's called this is because you have a point and you have a slope. We want to label our point x1, y1, and then we want to use this formula above. And they put parentheses in as they're substituting. I tend not to do that personally, but I'm definitely looking out for these double negatives. When I see a negative and a negative, I am going to change the question into a plus. So let's go ahead and strictly look at one of the questions then. So I picked fairly nice numbers to begin with, just so we can practice that procedure. So the question says it goes through 1, 2. So notice straight away I wrote down 1, 2. It says a slope of 3, so I write down a slope of 3. So I'm looking for those 3 numbers really quickly in the question, so I know that I can answer them. Label it as x1 and y1, and then start with the formula, that point slope formula, and then we can start substituting numbers in. So y1, it says in this question, is 2, and m, that's my slope, so that will be 3 for this question, and then x minus x1. x1 is 1. And no double negatives on this question, just a single negative and a single negative, so I don't need to do anything with that. Now, I know some people started to get a little confused with this and said that this is an x coordinate, which is 1. So where it says x, they wanted to write 1. Now, if we go back to those questions, and if you look at the answer choice as well, notice they all have a y and an x in them. So we don't substitute in for y and x, but that's one of the other reasons why I want you to put x1 and y1 here. So you're not tempted to put 1 as x, but you will put 1 for x1. Now, once we have this here, then we're going to start distributing, which means multiply. So I'm going to get rid of these parentheses. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times, don't forget the sign here. It's not 3 times 1, it's 3 times -1. Use your Desmos calculator if you're not sure. And to make this say y equals, right now it says y plus 2. So I want to move that to the other side. So to do that, I do opposites. So instead of subtracting 2, I would add 2. And if I check on my calculator, oops, not too neat here, -3 plus 2 should be -1. And then I could select that answer choice there. Now, it's very easy actually on a question like this. If I just go back for a second, if you're rushing or if you're doing this in your head, it's very easy to say 3 plus 2 is 5. Oh, and there's a negative sign. And want to put -5. So if you want to check your answer, what I would recommend is if you go in and type in the answer. Now, remember, I just changed this to a wrong answer. So -3x minus 5. The question says this line is supposed to go through the coordinate 1, 2. And you can clearly see from this picture that it does not. So if we go ahead and change it back to what the correct answer should have been, which I believe was -1. Oops, I guess it wasn't -1. Let me go back quickly and let me go fix that answer. Oh, I put in the wrong slope. I put in a slope of -3. It was a slope of 3. There we go. So let me quickly change that back. From -5, you can see that that line does not go through that point. If I change it to -1, we can see now that it goes through this point. But also importantly, notice the slope here. The number in front of the x is 3. And the question says it has to have a slope of 3. So I've checked the 2 things. I've checked the slope is correct and I've checked that it passes through that point there. So good little way of checking your answers if you're doing questions. Now, for the second one, this is really your turn, so you might want to pause the video for this, but I'm going to go through and work through the questions for benefit of people who are absent. So as I'm plugging my numbers in here, y1, I notice is -6. Also, just make sure you can see where I got these two numbers from in the question over here as well. The slope is -4. And x minus x1, that would be x minus 2. Now, this time I do have the double negative, so I'm just going to make it into one big plus sign straight away, and then I'm going to continue with the question. So this is where I want to multiply out. I want to get rid of my parentheses. So -4 times x is -4x. And one that causes a lot of problems, -4 times by -2. And I think it's because people do -4 times 2 by accident. This one should be 8. And by 8, we mean +8. And then make it say y equals again, like we did before. So instead of adding 6, do the opposite, which is to subtract 6. And 8 take away 6 is 2. And once again, by 2, I mean positive. So my answer should be -4x plus 2. And I would highly recommend you do the same thing we did on the last question. Type in the equation, type in this point here, and just check, does this line actually go through this point? We can see it's the right slope straight away. It says -4, and notice I've got -4x. So I know that part of the answer is correct. What I'm really checking is this y-intercept. So type in that coordinate, type in that equation, and just check that it actually passes through. And actually, there was a little demonstration. This was the correct answer, and you can see that it goes through perfectly. And if you accidentally made a careless mistake, you'll notice that the line doesn't go through the point, so you know that that's also not the right answer for that question. Now, horizontal and vertical lines seem to come up really frequently in these last couple of units. And again, Hoy and Vux. So horizontal lines, we're thinking about Hoy, and therefore y equals a number because of the y at the end. Vertical lines, I'm thinking of Vux, so I'm thinking about the last letter, which is x, oops, and therefore x equals a number. So vertical, I'm thinking VUX, so I know it's between these two, and then think about which coordinate is which. So this is x1 and y1, so the x coordinate's first. So as I'm doing Vux with the x, I want the x coordinate to be first, so I'm going to pick this one. Horizontal line, so I'm thinking Hoy, so I know this is y equals, and I'm looking at these two numbers here. And the y number is the second coordinate, which is -5 because it goes x and y. So therefore, I would pick y equals -5. And I don't really want an explanation. I meant to deselect that box. So a couple for you to try if you want to pause the video. If not, I will talk through them. Horizontal line, I'm thinking Hoy, so I know it's y. And then I'm just looking what is the y value for this one. So I can see it's -4, so I can go ahead and select that. Vertical line, I'm thinking Vux, VUX, and the x value in this question is -6. So x equals -6. So pretty quick to do those ones. Now, the last segment revolves around finding equations of lines, but when alternative information is given. So if they give a question where instead of giving a point and a slope, they actually give 2 points, then notice what's missing is we don't have the slope. So if we want to find the slope, we have to work it out. So we can work it out using the slope formula, like we did in module 2. Write out both coordinates, label x1, y1, and x2, y2. And then here was the formula that we originally used for finding slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we plug in the numbers, y2 is 2. y1, you can see, is -4. All divided by x2, which is 3, minus x1, which is -1. Now, originally when we did this, if it helps, you can put the loops around just to make it a little more obvious what each number is, but you certainly don't have to. I know the two negatives do make it positive, but I would recommend straight away, type that straight into Desmos. Now, I remembered here, there is a mistake. You can see in the question, it says 3, 4, but down here, I put 3, 2. So I know that's actually supposed to be a 4. So I'm going to change this number into a 4 before I keep going. So if we type this in, and if you want to check on Desmos, you'll discover that the answer to this question is 2. Now, that's good because this now looks like the other questions. I now have a point. I'm going to get rid of this just for a second. I just said that the slope for this was 2. So I don't actually need this point anymore. Notice what information I have. I have a point and I have a slope, and therefore I can do just like I did before, and I can work through the rest of the question as normal. Ignore that point. We don't need that anymore. I have just used one of the 2 points, and then go ahead and just work out the rest of the question as you did previously. Now, there is one other way we can do this question for slope. You can actually type in both coordinates, and then from here, you can actually count the squares using rise over run. So it goes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then it goes across 1, 2, 3, 4. So the slope is 8 over 4, and notice that's also 2. So whichever way you do this, you have a point, you have a slope, and then now you can continue with the question. So y minus y1 is -4. Slope we just found out was 2. X minus x1 is -1. And actually, I see a couple of double negatives here. So the first double negative, I'm going to make into a plus. And that second double negative, I'm going to make into a plus as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and distribute. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 1 is 2. And I want to make it say y equals again. So I'm going to bring that positive 4 to the side by doing the opposite. Let's cancel that out. And 2 take away 4 is -2. So I think the answer is 2x minus 2, but I'm not really sure at this point. Now, I can actually, as I type in those 2 coordinates like I did earlier, if we type in what we think the answer is, notice that this line does indeed go through both of these points. So I can actually confirm that is definitely the right answer for this question. As that line goes through both of the 2 points, then I know that that's the right answer. That question is obviously a little more difficult because you have to work out the slope first, and you've got to choose how you want to do that. But basically, notice that it's that same format. Once you have a point and a slope, you want to write out your formula, you want to substitute, you want to distribute, and then you want to make it say y equals and solve. And there are a few extra slides at the end here, but they're actually something that was slightly different. So I'm going to leave it at that point, and that's the end for this video.